My name's Michael Judin. I'm a practicing attorney in South Africa. So today, commemorating our first democratic election, all of the euphoria, I remember the day so well, all the races meandering, we were filled with such hope. For me, that was the end and the beginning of an incredible journey, because during the 80s, as the result of a fortunate twist of fate, I found myself involved in the committee which was enforcing the sanctions against South Africa. I was involved in forcing the disinvestment of major corporations from South Africa. I was fortunate to work with Andrew Feinstein on the Constitution and to do lectures on the Constitution. I became close to the Mandela family. I represented Winnie in some of her trials. And I remember so well those heady and wonderful days after the election when South Africa was the favored child on the block, in love with the whole world in love with us, the whole world investing in us. On every index, we were always in the top half a dozen or dozen. And we need to bring back, and we will bring back those days. I want to just share one very personal thing with you, to tell you a little bit about Madiba. The election was over. My wife June and I were at the Civic Theatre with Madiba in the Royal Box. He was already divorced. He was with his niece and a few other people, and we were watching a play which had been banned during the apartheid years. At interval, as we went to get refreshments, as we came to the door of the Royal Box, my wife stood back for Madiba to walk out, and he looked at her and he said, "June, first a gentleman and then the president. After you, please." That was the man that steered us through that incredible period of our life. So I just want to very quickly, on today is another significant day. Significant because it's National Pretzel Day. And you may ask, why is that significant? It's significant because in Europe during the Middle Ages, it was a symbol of good luck, prosperity, and spiritual fulfillment. The Catholic Church used to give them out to poor and needy people. So I want to let us hope that South Africa enjoys good luck, prosperity for the coming year and beyond on this Freedom Day. So let us very quickly have a look at South Africa today. Energy is horrific, but will right itself. Our big problem is kleptocratic activities. Normal corruption has always existed and is transactional. A traffic officer willing not to give you a ticket in exchange for a bribe. But kleptocratic activities, by contrast, do not lead to an outcome with a broader benefit. They just consist of the government and their cronies raiding public funds to enrich themselves, their families, and all other related parties. There is not a specific transaction. Kleptocrats use their power and control over resources to ensure a large chunk of funds flow into their coffers without feeling the need to deliver anything in return. And that is what is happening in South Africa today. And that is why the coming elections, with hopefully good coalitions, which I'll touch on later, will see a corrupt, inept, and incompetent government unable to continue with this kleptocratic activities, including, of course, the state-owned enterprises. But where are we now? South Africans want to be hopeful and we want to be realistic. We rarely notice that these two virtues are sometimes, even often, at odds. Hope puts a thumb on the scale, tipping it towards positive outcomes. Realism removes the thumbs from the scale. None of us are prophets. Our knowledge stops at yesterday. Our hope is for today, and tomorrow's an unfolding mystery, which is really not in our hands. And for what it is worth, why do I believe that the best and most realistic plans will win? Because I focus not on a corrupt, inept, and incompetent government, but on the people of South Africa. The majority of the people in this country, of all genders, races, colors, creeds, are good people. We generally like each other, and we are all wanting and wishing a good life for all of us and our loved ones. I truly believe that the will of the people will prevail, and that their plans that give hope in the future, hope for the future, will succeed. It was Voltaire who said, "Life is a shipwreck, but we must not forget to sing in the lifeboats." Paraphrasing the French writer, there is no question that the government is a shipwreck, but the people are in the lifeboats and they are singing, and we will continue to sing. And there is realistic hope. Let me give you two examples. Take the municipality of Howick, now known as Umgeni in KwaZulu-Natal, with Chris Pappas, an openly gay man representing the Democratic Alliance as its mayor. You may have read of the massive accident on the N3 in KwaZulu-Natal recently, when 22 vehicles collided and 5 people died. He called the whole municipality together. He stayed with them all night until the road was cleared. Every person was accounted for, and everyone was safe. Howick, Umgeni, is now a warm communal municipality. All races are becoming closer and more loving to each other. It is debt-free and starting to attract direct, local, and foreign investment. It is the most connected rural area in KwaZulu-Natal. Crime is declining fast, and believe it or not, there are no potholes, notwithstanding the warning that we've just received that we fix a pothole, will be prosecuted. And one more example is the Nelson Mandela Bay Opposition Coalition, Quebec, Port Elizabeth, as you'll know it, made up of 10 parties, has been a beacon of hope in a sea of political despondency. Despite inheriting a municipality facing 20 billion rand in irregular spending, devastated service delivery, and a drought, the coalition has managed to rebuild much of the services and infrastructure, providing much needed stability and unity within the administration. Why do I mention it? Because the success of the coalition is due to the surprising level of political maturity amongst its members, who put aside their own self-interest for the betterment of the city. The lesson of Nelson Mandela is important because we are entering an era of coalition government, and this successful coalition shows that responsible and accountable parties are crucial to the success of government. So reform progress is slow, but it's incrementally positive. The involvement of the private sector in the power sector is very encouraging. Our equity markets reflect a number of well-run companies with strong management and strong adherence to the principles of good corporate governance. Our King 4 Code and report, which I had the privilege of being on the task team that wrote the code. Our banking, legal, and financial sectors are world-class. Grey listing has highlighted what needs to be put right. We have an exceptional revenue service. The head, Edward Kieswetter, is an example of this kind of sons that are born in South Africa. And as I often say about South Africa and Africa as in a whole, its wealth is above the soil, not below the soil. And the best for last, civil society in this country is among the best in the world. There are insufficient words to thank organizations like AfriForum and OUTA and Corruption Watch and so many others who have done so much to expose all that is wrong and to do so much to put right. Our Constitution and Constitutional Court are amongst the very, very best in the world. Some rate our Constitution as the best in the world, albeit it came after many of the constitutions, but it still deserves its ranking. And artificial intelligence and all that goes with AI is a blessing in the fight against unbridled corruption and is going to be of such great assistance. 1994 was a watershed in our lives. The elections next year will be as much of a watershed. I'm hopeful that the good people in the ruling party, and there are many, there are outstanding young people committed who love the ANC who will come through, people who are in the mold of the ANC of 1994. Then there are many big business, local and international, with so much invested in this country. And the same people that meandered in the lines in 1994, now with their children and their grandchildren, will ensure, I realistically believe, that the new coalition government, which awaits us, working hand in hand with the private sector, will do for South Africa what the 32-year-old mayor of Howick, Chris Pappas, has done for that town. And a big reminder for all of us is the importance of small things that happen in South Africa, small things that all of you in the chamber do. And at this juncture, I just want to recognize Sharon, my dear friend, for so many years. I have such admiration and respect for her intellectual and emotional intelligence, and for her love of South Africa. Thank you, Sharon, for what you do. And small things do make a difference. I always share with people the story of the merchant seaman David Blair, who was appointed by White Star Line in 1912 as the second officer of the Titanic. He participated in the liner's sea trials, but days before the fateful maiden voyage, he was replaced by an experienced man, Henry Wilde. History doesn't tell us whether he was angry or in a rush, but when he left, he took with him the keys to the crow's nest locker, where the binoculars were kept, denying the lookouts on that fateful night the binoculars that would have prevented the tragedy. 1,500 plus lives wouldn't have been lost. 1,500 plus families wouldn't have been destroyed if those keys had been there. That small event had that huge result. I'm going to conclude with the famous words of Martin Luther King, that we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Although some of you are not here with us in South Africa, and maybe some are even not South Africans, I wish you all an enjoyable Freedom Day and urge you to be grateful, hopeful, and optimistic in belief that South Africa can change and succeed. As Michelle Obama said, you may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all the world's problems at once. But don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown that courage can be contagious and hope can take a life of its own. Thank you, Tanya and Sharon, for having invited me to share my thoughts with you today. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thanks for being such a good friend and so supportive of South Africa. It's thanks to people like you that the country can coalesce its resilience and its survival. And let's hope that the edge, that cliff edge, the brink of the edge that we seem to get too close to, we step away from it and get back onto terra firma as fast as the country can. So, Mike, I was inspired.